Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Behind the Curtain. Now, tonight, we're going to take a look at what the director's role is, in particular, in a musical or a play that has been done at the Phoenix Theater Company. We have 4 outstanding directors with us tonight that I've had the privilege of getting to know and with working with on all these shows as a producer. And they're coming from all over the country tonight. So I'm anxious for you to meet them all. The first person that I would love for you to meet is Mr. Larry Raben.
Hey, Mike.
And he is currently in Long Beach, California, being put up in this marvelous beach apartment by one of the companies that he was working for. So he's having a grand old time in Long Beach right now. And Larry, I'd love for you to just say hello and tell our audience out there what shows that you have directed for the Phoenix Theater Company.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And it's really nice to have things like this to do to connect with Michael and other artists that I have had the pleasure of working with at the Phoenix Theater. And to help it give a little structure to the week, to actually have something to look forward to. So thank you for being here. The first show that I did at Phoenix Theater was Love Makes the World Go Round. And the second that I did was When You Wish, the story of Walt Disney. And the last that I did was Kinky Boots. So I've had 3.
No, Jersey Boys.
Oh, Jersey Boys. Oh my God. Sorry, wrong theater. Yes, Jersey Boys. All right. Yeah, Jersey Boys.
Oops.
Yep, oops.
Well, they're practically the same show. I mean, for heaven's sake.
Well, they're great.
Mixed up.
Great hit, current. Yes.
You get them mixed up all the time.
Wow, we're on the start.
Well, thank you, Larry, and welcome. I'd also like for you to meet Karla Koskinen, and she is down in Birmingham, Alabama right now, where she teaches at the university there. But she has come in. Oh my gosh, we date way back, and but she's been here on a number of occasions. Karla, why don't you let us know all the shows that you have directed for us over the years?
I first came to Phoenix Theater in 2002 when I directed The Glass Menagerie, and that was followed by Mornings at 7, then Picnic, then Moonlight and Valentino, The Light in the Piazza, End of the Rainbow, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And I'm currently working with Michael on developing a new play, which is written by Jarlath Jacobs, entitled Lunch at Audrey's. So that's very exciting, and we're really looking forward to sharing that with you.
Thank you, Karla.
You're welcome.
And now I would love for you to meet another very special gentleman who is now in New York City, which is where he hails. And he is not only an amazing director, but he's also an amazing entrepreneur as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love for you to meet Mr. Jeff Whiting.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Jeff. Please let us know what you have done for us for the theater company.
Of course, thank you. It's been my great pleasure to have been invited to the Phoenix Theater to do the Scottsboro Boys a couple seasons ago. I had an amazing time, and then just this last season, last winter, The Sound of Music. I've had an amazing time there in Phoenix, and meeting some of you, and working with Michael and the amazing team there.
Thank you, Jeff. And finally, I'd like for you to meet somebody who's on our staff, who has crossed over. He's originally started as my intern assistant, but a brilliant actor, a wonderful, gifted actor that has turned now to directing. I'd like for you to, and he's also the director of our Partners That Heal program at the theater company, but I'd like for you to meet Mr. Pasha Yamotahari. So Pasha, big shout out, and tell us what you've directed for us.
Thank you, Michael. I hope everyone out there is staying strong in spirit, mind, and body. And thank you for tuning in. I did start as your assistant, Michael, as an assistant director. And actually, I was assistant director to Karla Koskinen for Light in the Piazza as well. Since then, I've had the pleasure of directing Christmas Story, Kinky Boots, Once, Ernest, Hedwig and the Angry Inch, Lady Di at Emerson's Bar and Grill, One Man, Two Governors, and collaborated with Karla and you on Our Town.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, welcome, Mr. Yamotahari. So what we're gonna do is try to get to know, get you, our audience, our dear patrons, get to know some of these directors in the way that I do, and try to find out a little bit about what makes them tick and why they are such gifted directors on their own. While right before I do that, I would like to say that if you do have a question that you would like to ask any of these directors or myself or the theater company in general, you can go on chat and you can just type in that question and that will get sent to us, and I'll ask that at the end of our interview of any of the questions that you might be, especially if you're pointing them to one particular person or another. So don't forget to sort of type in and keep those thoughts in mind on your chat. But first, what I would love to do is talk a little with Mr. Raben, Mr. Larry Raben. Larry is a phenomenal performer himself. He took over the role, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, of Leo in The Producers on Broadway. And he has done a number of shows as an actor all across the country. He is an artistic director as well of a theater in Palm Springs, as well as the Lawrence Welk in San Diego, in the San Diego area. And he is a regional theater director that is working constantly across our country. So we're very, very excited to have him here, and we're very, very excited to have had him at the Phoenix Theater Company. Larry, you have done both musical reviews and book shows for us, and I'd love to ask you, so what would you consider are the main differences between a musical review and a classic musical book show, and which, in your opinion, is more difficult to work on?
Sure. Yes, I've enjoyed working on both. I was very lucky in that, sometimes a musical review is literally only a collection of songs, and there is no actual script to tie them together. In my case, both Love Makes the World Go Round and Jersey Boys had amazing books that were written for this. So the difference is a review takes a catalog of songs, an existing catalog of one author, or in the case of Jersey Boys, the Four Seasons, and ties them together into a story. Whereas a book musical is a through written story, and the songs are written from the viewpoint of the characters. I think for me, it's much harder to direct a musical review because these songs were not written for these characters to sing. And so you're superimposing a reality, a literalness that doesn't, if you actually listen to every single lyric that the character is singing, it is sometimes in conflict with their want, their need, their desire. And so my goal is always to try to get the audience to hear those songs fresh, because you can listen to something like "Oh What a Night," which we're going to listen to in a second, and go on autopilot. But how do I get the character to tell the story fresh? How do I get the audience to hear it with fresh ears? How does it take on greater meaning? Does it have irony? Does it have humor? What does it do to make it live and breathe in this moment and still have the audience love the song that they want to hear so much? So I love them.
And I think you did a lovely job with a really lovely job with the Jersey Boys, and in particular on this particular number that we're about to see, Oh What a Night. I think Jersey Boys is a really neat jukebox musical, if we go with that term. because it does narrate the story of the Four Seasons and how each of these songs were written at the time that they were written. It's kind of it's kind of exciting, and you get to learn a lot about not only the Jersey Boys but why this particular song was written at the time.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to take a look at "Oh What a Night."
Right.
I got a funny feeling when she walked in the room. Yeah, as I recall, it ended much too soon. Oh, what a night! Whoa, whoa, hypnotizing, mesmerizing me. Oh, she was everything I dreamed she'd be. Oh, sweet surrender, what a night!
It's great. Thank you, Larry,
Thank you.
for that. It's fun to sort of take a look back at that.
Yeah.
Larry, as we were seeing, in this particular song, we saw lighting effects and the orchestra playing and sound and costume changes and set pieces moving, all of which take place during the tech rehearsals. So Larry, I'd like to ask you, what is the challenge of a tech rehearsal? And oftentimes, especially from a director, and anybody else, but primarily from directors, you will hear occasionally, well, we'll fix that in tech. We'll fix that in tech. So what I'd love to know is, what are we fixing in tech?
Yes. Okay. So when we're in the rehearsal room, I mean, we have tons of meetings, and everything. The designers are meticulous, and we try to pre-think ahead everything that could possibly happen, everything that we need, everything that could go wrong. But there are just some things, until you physically are in the actual space, you realize you can't see a scene where you put it on that bridge because of the dynamics of that theater. You can't light it accurately, different things that happen. So specifically with Jersey Boys, we had that beautiful Verrazano Narrows Bridge set done by Robert Kovash. And we had staged the entire show with 2 sets of escape stairs that went upstage. So in other words, we had entrances from the sides, entrances from upstage onto the bridge, and then we had these moving pieces that could take people down the front and off in different ways. When we got into the theater, we realized that the drum platform needed to be bigger to have all of the instrumentation on it, and that drum platform had to continually come in from upstage and slide under the bridge because it's used in all of the live performance numbers, and the drums couldn't fit through there with those staircases. So during the tech rehearsal, which is really only 3 12-hour days where all of the elements come together, we had to get rid of those staircases and find different ways for those actors to come on and off for all of those entrances. And it's nothing that we could have pre-thought until we got there. We didn't realize the drum platform needed more space. So people have to be on their feet. People have to be, smart, good humored. It's all about instant problem solving. I find it really exciting. There is an adrenaline about being in I really love. It all comes alive.
Great. Well, thank you, Larry. And I have one other question I'd love to talk with you about. So you often work very closely with a choreographer, with your choreographer. And at least for the couple of big shows that you did for us, Jersey Boys and When You Wish, there was a great deal of choreography that was woven in to both pieces. One being a world premiere, one that was now a new classic. but you seem to work very, very closely to them. In some ways, even closer than maybe another director does with choreographers. What is that special relationship that you have counted on between yourself and the choreographer?
Well, I've always loved dance. I feel it's a really important part of storytelling. And the choreographers that I work with, they said they're used to directors saying, dance less, dance less. I don't understand why I'm dancing here. And I find it so dynamic. I watch how the audience lights up when really great choreography is happening. Um, I have paired with at your theater, and these are two of my lifelong partners, Lee Martino on When You Wish, and Peggy Hickey, who has now 2 Broadway shows on Jersey Boy. And they're both directors in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
What I love to do is I make them an equal partner in the creation of the piece. You know, the buck always has to stop with the director, because you have to have one voice that ultimately makes the decision. But I find my work is much better when I have another artistic brain next to me, and we all do our planning, we do our pre-planning, we get in the room and we feed off of each other. And I find that collaboration really exciting. I find it artistically fulfilling. And so it brings me joy.
Well, thank you. And I think that we're about to take a look at, tell us what we're about to see here, Larry, from When You Wish.
Yeah, so When You Wish, Story of Walt Disney, was an original musical. The author wrote it, had been working with Roy Disney's son, Roy, for years, and had been told that the 11 o'clock number in the show could be a series of animated clips from all of the movies Walt Disney did between 1940 and 1955. When Roy died, which was before we got into production, that was no longer available. And suddenly, the most important slot in the show did not have a song or a way to voice all of that artistic work. So Lee and I got together and we conceived an animation ballet, because the great thing about the Disney studios is they did hire live dancers and they rotoscoped them, and the animators would watch, like in the case of Bambi, they had deer in the middle of the studio that were grazing and walking and doing things, and they animated them as they went. And we thought, if we get these animators around with sketch pads and we get dancers in rehearsal clothes, and we could create this ballet that would give us the brilliance of Walt Disney through dance. So this is the animation ballet in short.
Great, thank you. Let's take a look. Beautiful, beautiful. So I can see how you as the director and Lee as the choreographer certainly worked very well to bring that to life. So thank you, Larry, for that discussion and for your work on our stage. Now I would love to introduce you, or again, to Mr. Jeff Whiting. Jeff Whiting has oftentimes been the associate to the Broadway director Susan Stroman, and I'm going to have him tell you a little bit about that relationship in a moment. And one of the pieces that he co-associated with Susan Stroman on was the original Broadway production of Scottsboro Boys. When we decided to do Scottsboro Boys a few years back, Jeff was kind enough to reach out and say, "Oh my gosh, you're doing Scottsboro Boys. What an amazing show. I had such a powerful, impactful, magical time helping to create that show. And I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed the production, etc." So I reached back out to him. We chatted and etc. I said, "Well, right now I don't have a director for the piece because we had just chosen the piece." And so I asked him if he might be interested, might be available. Lo and behold, he was. And he came out to produce Scottsboro Boys and brought a lot of his own ideas as well as some ideas that were based on the original, in particular because of the way it was scenically put together. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeff. And Jeff, would you tell us a little bit about your work with Susan and about the original, and tell us tell us about that original experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky to be Susan's associate for, I guess, going on 12 years. I've worked on Young Frankenstein and Big Fish and Bullets Over Broadway. And she asked me if I would do the Scottsboro Boys. And that really, truly was a life-changing experience working on first the off-Broadway production and then the Broadway production. It's unlike any other production I've ever been involved in. From just the subject matter itself is very charged. It's charged with the racial dynamic and racial injustice. And so the experience, having done it off Broadway and then Broadway, was unbelievably life-changing. It's not like a show, it's a movement, and you're telling a really important piece of history. So when I saw that you were doing it on your season, I was so excited to see what somebody else was going to do with the production. And so, because we had spent so much time working on it and really detailing it, and I often wondered, I'm interested to see what somebody else will do, with this material. And so that's why I initially reached out to say, I cannot wait to come and see what somebody else does with it. And then, in fact, you gave this amazing opportunity to me to come and recreate the show there in Phoenix. And the cast in Phoenix was just absolutely phenomenal, and gave us the opportunity to really, truly recreate the show. Although, it was based on the original, every person, the cast, has a very personal connection to the story. And so to recreate it with them was really, really special.
And Jeff, since you worked on the original and then you came out to do ours, and I know you've done a number of other productions of Scottsboro Boys across the country, what did you bring differently to this show that was not done in the original? And why was the design, in particular the scenic and set dressing design of the show, so important to the actual physical workings or function of the show itself?
Yeah, that's true. It is really, really integral to the plot. I think what we created with the production in Phoenix was really unique in that the cast was very different from the cast we had in New York, and other casts that I've had. And always as a director, I try to rely on, of course, the material, but then also what individuals bring to that material. And I discovered that as we were working with the cast and as they were, bringing their own point of view to the show, it changed. And, it was no good for me to just try to, force an idea that somebody had done before. And I just thought it was wonderful that this cast was so inventive and so open. And so it was really, I tried to foster an environment where people could work and change. And so the production, although many things were the same, individual performances were individual and were created by this cast in Phoenix, who was absolutely phenomenal. So I think that's what was really different about the production. And then to your point about the design of the show, it really was designed, and it's part of the play that, when Kander and Ebb, wrote the show, was designed to be told as a minstrel show. And so
Right.
for 100
Right.
years, the American theater minstrel shows were, the method of theater. And that is a very specific set. What it is, it's a semicircle of chairs. And on one end is Mr. Tambo, and on the other end is Mr. Bones, who are the end men. That's what we call the end men, the ones who tell the jokes. And in the middle is what we call the interlocutor, the man who leads the affairs. And every minstrel show has that format. And within the minstrel show, it's basically a very loose format in which you could tell any story, and somebody could step forward and do a number, and somebody could decide to tell the whole story. And so the concept of the show was that we would tell the show as a minstrel show. So in fact, the design, I think, had to be a semicircle of chairs. So we took 13 chairs, and the challenge was to somehow, with these 13 chairs, create 37 different locations. So without bringing in or flying in sets, we wanted to really try to create with just these 13 chairs, and that were built like puzzle pieces, to create 37 different locations. And I think this clip we're going to look at here, actually you'll see at the very top of this clip, you'll see what is the semicircle of chairs. And the very first location they go to in the play is on the train. So the very first challenge was, okay, let's figure out how can we make a train out of these chairs. So you'll see at the beginning of this clip how all the cast work together, and they put the train together. Even the props that they have, tambourines that we used in the opening number, get hung on the front, and that becomes the wheels of the train. So really every little piece of the design became part of each location. So let's take a look at this clip, and you'll see at the beginning how we formed this train with the chairs.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Our story begins one fine spring morning, March the 25th, 1931, on a boxcar headed for Memphis. It's the dawn of the Depression, and 9 young boys looking for work, 9 complete strangers, are about to begin the ride of their life. Go on, boys, flavor us with your story. Tell us where it all started.
Commencing in Chattanooga. Commencing in Chattanooga. On the Southern Railroad line. On the Southern Railroad line. Grab on, Roy, grab on.
You sure this train go to Memphis?
Stick with me, we'll have jobs by sundown.
In the morning when my sleep was done, and I felt that cheery Chattanooga sun. Then I thanked the Lord above that I was still alive, and I waited for the 6:05. Commencing in Chattanooga, chugga chugga, chugga chugga, and it chugga chugga in, and I said, there you are, as I scrambled in the old boxcar. Then I settled back, believing that the world was fine. I was traveling on the Southern line. Commencing in Chattanooga. Here now, I'm gonna see the world on the Southern Railroad line. And there ain't no finer way to travel. Now you can take your B&O, and you can take your Santa Fe, and you can take your old Rock Island line, and throw them all away. And if the Pennsylvania calls, just say you want your money back. And if the New York Central's on the phone, tell them they're way off the track. Commencing in Chattanooga.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Jeff,
Yeah.
in your opinion, what is the most important thing that a director brings to a project?
Well, I think probably the most important thing that the director brings is a vision for the piece. I
Sure.
think it's in the end, it's the director who's responsible for the entire experience the audience will have. And so I think it's important that the director comes in with a pretty strong vision of how that experience should happen. And then I think it's my responsibility as the director to then share that vision with the designer, so that the designers can get on board for the scenic design, the costume design, the lighting design, and so that we're creating an atmosphere in which that vision, can hang on, and then sharing that vision with the cast, and just essentially steering the ship. But along the same way, I think it's important that a director although you may have a really strong vision and you know exactly what you want it to be, to give the team, the designers and the cast, the ability to play and make their own collaboration. Essentially, that's what theater is. It's a collaborative art. And so I think I've always been amazed by how I might go in with this one particular vision and idea, and I sort of guide everybody in the same direction. But I'm always amazed that it actually turns out better than I planned, because of the great people around me, and the cast is amazing, and the designers are amazing, and it turns out better as a collaborative art.
That's great. That's great. And so true. So true. Jeff, what comes first in your opinion? Character development or the development of the storytelling itself? And how do you know when you have told your story well?
That's a great question. I don't know which comes first. I think I always start with telling the story. How is the story told? And the story ends up being told by, different points of view. And that is what the character development is. And so, so essentially, I think if I had to give an answer, I would say the storytelling comes first. So you develop the story, but the story is told only by people's character, which is then developing. So finding, the character's arc at the beginning, and how do they grow and how do they change, at the climax of the play, and how are they different from the beginning of the play to the end of the play. I think that's a big question that has to be answered. And the truth is, you don't know if you've told the story well until you see the audience watch it. So I've often experienced, it being in the rehearsal room, and we're all on board and we all follow the idea. And suddenly when the very first audience looks at it, they've missed the joke, they've missed that. Why are they missing it? I personally find the preview period the best time, because you get a chance to see what actually is working, not what you thought was going to work, but actually across the stage and through the microphones, does it actually work? So it's only at that time, once the audience gets to see it for the first time, that you know if you told the story well.
So tell us, we're going to show another clip from Scottsboro Boys. Can you give us a little setup as to what we are seeing and where these characters are coming from?
Yeah, I actually think this is an interesting example of storytelling. It's a beautifully written piece. This is also from Scottsboro Boys. It's a song called Alabama Ladies. Of course, in the story, these young men have been wrongly accused of a crime that they didn't commit, and they're pulled off the train and they're accused of this horrible crime. In the concept of the play, the boys play all the characters. So in this clip, you're going to see two of the boys who are accused. They put on a hat and they put on a sweater, and they become the girls who make the accusation. And what you'll see is in the foreground, the two young ladies who are making this accusation, and they're telling this made up story. But you'll notice in the background, if you take a peek, in the background are all the other young men who have been corralled by the police, and they're getting beat up at the same time. So in the foreground, you'll see these lovely ladies telling this fake story, and in the back, with the same accents you hear in the front, you'll see the boys getting beat up in the back. So I think it's a great example of storytelling, and also how the character's point of view actually makes a difference in the story.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Sure.
Ladies.
Follow me. Do exactly as I do. And don't fuck up. We're only two true Alabama ladies, loyal daughters of the solid South. As you can see when you set your gaze upon us, even butter wouldn't melt in our mouths. But then a Negro threw himself upon me. I can still smell his hot black breath. Another Negro grabbed me by my boobies, oh it scared me half to death. Another Negro opened up his trousers, and I struggled like an eye on a cat. And then he raped me.
An Alabama lady doesn't tolerate a thing like that.
Look at those pale primroses. When it comes to our lovely ladies, you are savage beast, lusting after our sweet white refined sugar. Actually, I'd like to have some of that sugar later.
Another Negro slapped me on the keister, and he threw me to the box floor.
The other me and my privates, which were private, weren't private anymore.
Oh, it's a ballin' and really going when you're the flowerer is someone who's black. They really hurt you, they take your virtue, and when it's taken, there's no taking it back.
Thank you, Jeff. To all of you, all four of you, I'm gonna ask a couple of quick little questions, and just the faster the response, the better. Just what comes off the top of your mind as to how to answer this question in as short a phrase as possible. So I'm going to ask how you approach blocking. Now, blocking in a show is the actual physical staging of where the actors are going from moment to moment on the stage floor. They're crossing from stage right to stage left. They're entering through a door. They're crossing to the window. They sit down at a table. All of that physical action and that physical movement is called blocking. So, and it has to be approached in one way or another. Pasha, how do you approach blocking?
I'm a dictator that then turns into a democrat, so chaotic, using my obsessive compulsive order to create crazy patterns, being aware of every single person's movement on stage at all times. And then it all goes away.
Karla?
Well, I'm a socialist. No, I pre-block typically, and then I come into the room and I work the blocking throughout the entire process. So I come in with a plan, but then the actors and I refine it and change it and work on it through tech rehearsals, to the dismay of many people.
And Jeff?
I would say I'm similar to Karla. I make a plan, and then when we get in the room, let the actors play around. If they feel they want to go left, let them go left, and then we kind of work it out together.
And Larry?
Yes, I'm a libertarian when it comes to this. I know in the big scenes, I know where everyone is going to enter or exit. But in the big scenes, I pre-plan and I say, let's try it like this, like a football play. And then let's see what happens. In the smaller scenes, I know where I want them to start, but I want it to develop organically in the room.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So here's another question. What is more challenging, in your opinion, comedy or drama, and why? Pasha?
Both. I think they're different things. Drama asks you to breathe, whereas comedy asks you for grasping for air. So they're different to me, but both challenging.
Karla?
I find comedy more challenging. I can assist an actor in growing deeper and getting more emotionally connected in a drama. In a comedy, if you don't have comic timing, I'm not going to coach you into being funny. So I find comedy more difficult.
Jeff?
I find comedy to be very, very difficult. Timing is everything, and not everybody has it.
That's true. Very, very true. Larry?
Hands down comedy. The focus has to be razor sharp, and I love to find the funny, but yes, it is about boom, being on your mark, being in the right place, everybody in the audience looking at the right moment when it's happening, or the sub moment, which
it's a gift. It is a gift, that's for sure. Karla, let's turn to you. You've been with us several times over the years. What has been your favorite production with us?
Well, you have given me so many amazing opportunities, and I've gotten to direct such a wide variety of shows. I certainly love doing Light in the Piazza, but my favorite show is definitely Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I think the reason it's my favorite show, it's one of my favorite shows I've ever directed because it is so hard. And so I was really challenged by this play. The reason it's so difficult is because the story is told from Christopher's point of view.
Mhm.
And Christopher is a young autistic boy, and he has this beautiful mind that is very different than our minds. And so I wanted to honor that storytelling and honor his mind and his way of thinking. And so I wanted to climb inside of that and create the whole physical life of the show from that very intricate, beautiful mind. So it was incredibly challenging. The goal for me in that show was to have the audience start to appreciate and admire that mind by the end of the production, to cheer for him. And so that's it, the whole idea of embracing other. And so it was really an exciting piece for me to work on. In the clip that we're about to see, Christopher has found letters that were hidden by his father. And in the letters, it's revealed that his mother, who his father had told him had died, is actually alive. And this information really unravels Christopher. And so what we're going to look at is as I talk to you, this is really what you're going to see is how Christopher sees and hears and processes that information. So what we're looking at is really Christopher's point of view of that event.
Great. Thank you. Let's take a look.
Christopher, I never meant to hurt you. I used to have dreams that everything would get better. Do you remember when you used to say that you wanted to be an astronaut? Well, I used to have dreams where you were an astronaut and you were on television. And I'd think, that's my son. I wonder what it is you want to be now. Has it changed? Are you still doing maths? I hope you are. Loads and loads of love. Mother.
Very nicely done, Karla. What a very strong statement of his loss from his mother and and suddenly realizing all the time and the treasured moments that he has never had. You know, when you're working with a group of artists, because you're also a university instructor in theater as well. So whether you're working on a university production or at at any given theater that you might work at, you also worked at Barra College in Chicago as well. And sometimes I know when you work with a group of young artists or a group of artists, and then they're mixed with people who might be a little bit more seasoned or etc. Sometimes the performances are not always as even as another one. How do you go about working to try to even out that show and make it as cohesive an acting piece as possible?
That's a really interesting question, Michael. Is that me?
It is you, Karla.
How am I doing that?
You're doing
That's
great.
magical. Well, as you said, I've been an acting teacher for a long time, and I think I've recently come to the conclusion that what really good actors have in common is the confidence to reveal their authentic self. That sounds like it's easy, but it's an incredibly difficult thing to do because all of us have insecurities, all of us have fears, and those are the things that tend to block us. So it's important to think about this young, inexperienced actor walking into a rehearsal hall with more experienced people. What do they bring in? They're bringing in their insecurity. And how does that manifest itself, right? It manifests itself. They come in and they're trying to prove that they've got this. I can do this. I've got it. Watch me. I've got all the right answers, which of course is antithetical to creating any kind of artistic work. You have to be, brave enough to be in the chaos. And if you're trying to prove you've got it, you can't really do anything. So I always think that my job is to create a really safe space in the rehearsal hall, and to support them, all of them, all the actors. And if the younger actors can see a more experienced actor taking risks and failing, and they see me taking risks and failing, I hope that they learn it's okay. In fact, that is the whole process for all of us to take risks and fail and take risks and fail, because only then can we find something that's really worth showing to an audience. So that to me is really important. The other thing I try to do is set the bar very high for all of us and make it clear in the beginning we're never going to reach it. That is not, it's not possible. It's an ideal, but all of us are going to strive to get as close as we can. And young actors tend to respond very well to that. They want to reach that kind of ideal. It is impossible in a rehearsal process for us to take an inexperienced actor and turn them into a seasoned actor in one rehearsal process. It's not going to happen. But if we can create an environment where they can play and explore, hopefully we can help them do their best work, and that will even out those performances if we get them in there and joining the rest of us in playing. So that's really how I think about it, and it's my job to create that space.
And that's an excellent answer, especially coming from an educator. It's really lovely to hear that. What is your most rewarding and most challenging part of a rehearsal process? And I think you're going to set up an example of what you are thinking about.
I am. I think my most rewarding is the same in every production I do. And the most rewarding thing for me is working with the actors. I love the nitty gritty, moment to moment work. I love helping them get more specific. I could do that part of the process for the rest of my life. I hate to open a play because I am having way too much fun working with the actors and creating something. That's when I'm in my glory. And I'm an actor's director. That's how I label myself. That's what I love to do. The most challenging changes from production to production. But I want to talk about End of the Rainbow. The most challenging thing for me in End of the Rainbow was actually the script itself. And the reason it was so challenging for me is because it really looked at the end of Judy Garland's life. And probably everyone watching this knows that the end of Judy Garland's life was a train wreck. And so the play really is a train wreck. We are watching her self-destruct. So how do you take on a piece where someone is crashing and burning? So that was my big challenge, and it certainly was Jeannie's challenge. And we worked very hard, the actors and I, to try to find a way for the audience to relate to Judy at this point in her life. Certainly, you're not going to see her sing, but certainly Jeannie's voice is fabulous, and she could sing those fabulous songs that Judy sang, and that is what brought us to Judy. But when we're watching most of the play, we're watching her unravel. So the scene that you're about to see is a scene where Judy is actually trying to have some control over her life. Her husband wants her to go back out on stage and perform, and she's rejecting him. She does not want to perform. The problem, of course, is she's been drinking a lot for a long period of time. She's exhausted. She can barely stand up. And she's being fed amphetamines so that she has the pep to get on stage. So all of those things are working in her body as she's trying to gain some power. what you see is as she's trying to gain power, she's actually unraveling. She's spiraling out of control. So that idea of spiraling out of control was my metaphor for the blocking in this scene. So you'll see that Judy is the one that is moving around the space. There is a lot of physical activity for her because I wanted to really demonstrate what is happening in her life at this point.
Great. Well, let's take a look at Into the Rainbow.
I need a drink.
No, you're not having anything.
Don't you try and control me, Mickey. I make the decisions.
We'll see about that.
Yes, we will see.
The last time you ran your own life, look what happened.
Take a look at your own life. You think you did so great?
When you're like this.
Like what? Where's my drink?
You're not getting a drink. I'll order some coffee.
Oh, screw the coffee. Where is it?
It's gone, so forget it.
Where's the whiskey?
Stop straightening yourself out. You've got a show tomorrow.
I am not doing a show tomorrow.
Yes, you are.
Now you listen to me. I decide if and when I do shows, and I am not doing one tomorrow.
Yes, you are.
And get on the phone and start giving back the tickets.
That's not happening.
Are you listening to me? No, sir! I took the roof off that place tonight. I gave them everything I had. And now, we're gonna get the hell out of here, because I just can't do that again. There's nothing left. Cancel the show.
And then what? We walk away here with nothing. We, at the start of this, that I would be the one who looks after you. That's what you wanted, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So you can rant and rave as much as you like, but when the sun comes up tomorrow, you are getting ready for a show. Regular as clockwork.
Is that your final word?
Yes!
Well, here are my final words. I don't want to!
Great. Great. Thank you, Karla. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so sorry. I've lost my spot. So, Pasha, I'm going to move on to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I've certainly known you for a while now, and you have often played some amazing roles on our stage, from 39 Steps to Baskerville to, Boing Boing, and In the Heights. So I've seen you perform in some amazing shows, but now you've taken up directing, and you have certainly been a star in that arena as well, especially with actors who also play instruments, which is seen a little bit more and more in certain musicals on stage. What is that challenge?
There's several challenges, but first and foremost, I think it's chemistry. It's not only the chemistry we're trying to find within actors on stage, the chemistry they find, but the chemistry in trying to create a band in 3 weeks, a band that feels like they've been playing together for years. So looking at Lady Day or Hedvig or Once, those first few days is all these instruments, these beautiful, wonderful artists coming together and figuring out, can they jam together? And by the end, once the show opens, do they sound like a band that's been touring for years and years? So that's a huge challenge. And there's a lot of voices, a lot of instruments that have voices. So as a director and music director, is the collaboration with the band, letting them know that they can trust us with helping to put the band together. And then lastly, it's for me, it's always the challenge of making sure you're authentic to the music, that it's not actors who are pretending to be musicians, that these are craftsmen and craftswomen that are great at all the different things that they're amazing at.
Great. Can you set up the clip we're about to see?
Sure.
That demonstrates this.
Yeah, we were fortunate. I had the ability to be very creative with our production of Once, and the Pied Piper idea of this busker in Ireland, in Dublin, bringing people together, all the instruments of the town, regardless of who they are. So we're looking at the end of Act 1, where our main character, Guy, is performing on the street outside a bar, and other people have come by to listen. And he's really bringing what I felt when I was in Dublin, the sound of Dublin together, as people from all areas of Dublin, regardless of what they do for a living, can celebrate and have their voice heard through the instruments they play.
Great. Let's take a look at the end of Act 1 once.
And I love her so. I wouldn't trade her for a gold. I'm walking on moonbeams, and I was born with a silver spoon. And I'm gonna be me, I'm gonna be free. I'm walking on moonbeams and staring out to sea. If the door be closed and a rover won't start building, tear curtains down, for sunlight is right. And you better be you and do what you can do. Walking on moonbeams and staring out to sea. 'Cause if your sin was sold, how long do you think before they start again? If your life was sold, how long do you think you'd stay living? I love her so. I wouldn't trade her for gold.
Yeah, that's an amazingly difficult thing to really not only vocally acting, instrument playing, to be able to convey all of that as if they've been doing it forever. You know, that is an amazing experience. Pasha, how do you? Sometimes you'll be working on a show and etc., and it'll just seem like there's either a section of the show or a scene in the show, maybe even a moment in the show where the actor feels blocked. They just can't seem to grasp it. They know it, you know it. You work on it, you come at it from different directions, etc. What do you do? How do you help an actor that is mentally blocked about a moment?
Well, I've learned always from directors like you, Karla, Larry, Jeff. So I use theater for one, and I'll get to that in a second. But secondly, being the son of a child psychologist, I use a lot of psychology. I try to find ways to tap into substitution for them to get them out of their head of trying to act and just be. Often, in the case of Lady Day, we just changed the entire room around and made everything face a different direction, so that we rely on something that makes artists, I think, the most amazing things is the instincts they have. If we get too structural and give them too much blocking, too much this, too much that, direction, they start leaning into just being structural versus trusting their instincts. So I'll play tricks, and I'll do what my mom did to me when I was a young 7-year-old growing up, and do psychological treatments. And my actors hate me because of that. They hate me.
Perfect. Great. Pasha, how do you tell your story? And what has been the most challenging?
Having started out in film and making movies, I wanted to find a happy medium between theater and cinema. So I would say the challenging thing early on was being too cinematic with the way that I blocked shows and made tableaus and composition. But then eventually I was able to merge the two. Sometimes the tableaus I'm setting up, even if we took just dialogue away, I would want to try to hit the emotional impact or subtextual impact I'm hoping the audience is feeling. So it's always, to me, starting with the cinematic element, the storyboarding in my head, and then layering in dialogue, layering in music. So over the years, it was challenging at first, but I think I was able to figure out my own kind of signature or style, so to speak. In the next clip we're about to watch, which is from Kinky Boots, which is I'm Not My Father's Son, I really wanted to use the space and use an old Orson Welles technique, which is just having your front ground and background, and something that's in the background being a bit more less focused, but then coming into focus as they're learning something. So in this case, we're going to see Lola Simon in the front ground as she's singing, and then we'll have, blanking on the other character right now, Charlie coming in the background as he's observing. So it's just a point of view shift that a camera lens would typically do in cinema.
Great. Kinky Boots, ladies and gentlemen. My fault.
So I jumped in my dreams and found an escape. Maybe I went to extremes of leather and lace, but the world, it seemed brighter 6 inches off the ground, and the air seemed lighter. I was profound, and I felt so proud just to live out loud. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done, and mirror what was not in me. The endless torrent of expectation was swirling inside my mind, and it wore me down. I came to a realization, and I thought, hey, turned around to see that I could just be me. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what what he dreamed of. With the strength of a Sparta and the patience of Job, still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not. We're the same, Charlie boy, you and me. We're Charlie from Northampton, meet Simon from Clacton. Let's make boots.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been witnessing some wonderful moments in our theatrical history, and I have enjoyed witnessing them, reminiscing about those shows and so many others that these terrific directors and other directors and other artists have brought to our stage. It saddens me, as it saddens all of us that are watching here tonight, that we cannot be on those stages bringing art and crafting these shows, these scenes, these songs, this choreography in the meaningful way that we always have in the past. You know, we are artists. It is part of our DNA to console and comfort, to unite and teach, as all of these brilliant directors have done on a number of occasions. And we do it for you because we love each and every one of you that comes to the theater. It excites us, it unites us, it propels us forward, it gives us reason and purpose for being. In these trying times, in this difficult time that we call coronavirus, we are waiting and preparing to come back to entertain you in the same way that we have in the past. But these are critical times for us. And if you have it in your heart to send in a donation to the theater company, at this time, we would be humbly grateful for it. Any size donation or gift is important and valuable at this time. There is a link in the chat section that if you simply connect on that link, it will send you to the donation. And so if it's within your heart and your ability and your budget, please consider a donation to the Phoenix Theater Company at this time. We thank you so very much. I'm going to, we're running sort of towards the end of our evening, but I do want to touch on one thing, and that is, and then there's a couple of questions that have come in that I would also like to, but we're gonna, in a future evening with Behind the Curtain, we are going to take a look at a very critical role in the theater and in the success of any production. And that is the role of the stage manager. And that stage manager has a critical relationship with so many compartments: the designers, the actors themselves, all of the artistic staff, in particular, the director. And that individual is often the unsung hero because they have to take everything that has been put together artistically and meld that with everything that has been put together technically speaking and run this show like a well-oiled machine and keep that thing tight. So I'm just going to ask each of the four of you, because we'll spend an evening with the stage managers, but I'm going to ask you, how do you work with your stage manager? What do you count on from them? And is there anything you would like to say to any of our stage managers? So I know that's kind of a three-part question, but if you can be brief and succinct, and um, and and from your heart, we'd love to hear it. Karla, I'm going to ask you first.
For me, they're the great facilitators. They allow me to do what I do. I can be in the chaos and the uncertainty of the creative process, and they always have their feet on the ground. They are always organized. They are the reason that I do what I do. It's a very intimate relationship. And I guess I would give a shout out to Sam and her team, Michelle and Catherine. It's an amazing group of stage managers. Not only are they, oh man, right? Not only are they highly qualified, but the most exciting thing for me, and I've seen this over the years, they have each other's backs. I don't care who's stage managing for me. The others are always in the room at some point. They're always helping facilitate things. And that's so rare. It's one of the reasons why I love working at Phoenix Theater so much. I feel so well taken care of. And I feel the productions are so beautifully taken care of by the stage management team. The end for me.
Thank you, Karla. Pasha?
Yeah, they're mom, dad, brother, sister. They're everyone. I'll just make a joke out of it because Karla kind of just said, and our stage management team knows this, how much I truly love them. But I did not become the director I am without learning from them. I never treated it as coming into the room knowing what I'm doing. I learned a lot from them throughout the years. And now when I direct, I try to prep based on stage management. But a lot of important things for me is the break that I need and taking care of me. That's a big thing. That's the one person in the room that I feel is taking care of the director, which is important. And then something maybe not all viewers know, but as directors, we leave the show after opening night. We're done. So that 8 weeks to make sure that the show that we created and worked hard with everyone on, they're the ones maintaining it. They're the ones that keeping an eye on it and making sure the original vision is true when actors get bored and start doing things off stage left and off stage right when they shouldn't.
Never do that.
Jeff?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, a stage manager is the secret sauce of any good production. They wear so many different hats. They have one foot in the future, anticipating things that are coming. They have one foot on the ground in what's happening currently. They're not missing a beat. And the team, the stage management team at Phoenix Theater is the best I've ever seen in all my years. And I'm so grateful for them and for the work that they do to support us as directors.
They are a foursome to be reckoned with. Sam, Michelle, Catherine, and Mylea. I mean, talk about girl power, woman power, whatever. Smart, savvy, just intelligent artists that have, just like you were saying, Karla, they have each other's backs, and they have the theater's back, and they have the artist's back. So, it's amazing. A quick shout out to Jeff as well. Actually, you know what? Let me hear from Larry first. Larry, what would you say about stage management?
I would say your team is hands down the most phenomenal team across the board that I've worked with, and I love the power and the energy that they all bring in together, always in support of each other. I've worked so intimately with Michelle and Sam. I'm still marvel at the fact that stage managers they have to have the brain of a director, the sensibility of an actor. They're part HR. They are, they're no one else is required to do all of the things that the stage manager does. And they're the first people in the building, the last people to leave.
Last ones to go. Yep.
They are the point person for every other thing happening in the organization. And then we build this new flying craft together. I've always said it's like flying a plane, but actually each time it's its own individual thing. And then we dump it in their lap, and in 72 hours, they have to fly this thing. I'm truly in awe of what they do. It makes what I do feel very simplistic. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
And it is, Larry. What you do is very simplistic, but it's okay. A big shout out to Mr. Jeff Whiting for doing something remarkable during this coronavirus. Mr. Jeff Whiting owns and runs the Open Jar Studios in New York, Manhattan, which are absolutely beautiful, stunning rehearsal studios. But he, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but he actually was able to employ 400 Broadway stitchers and turned his entire rehearsal studios into a factory in which they made hospital gowns and masks and etc. for hospitals, nurses, doctors, etc. To help them through this coronavirus. So a huge shout out to Jeff.
We're just happy to be of service and to find some way to help during this crazy time.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing you were able to do. I have a couple of questions that I would love to ask before we wrap ourselves up. So I'm going to add, let's see. What is the most challenging thing about directing a new work? Jeff, you seem to do nothing but new works. What is the most challenging thing about directing a new work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky to work on lots of new shows. I do think the most challenging thing on a new show is figuring out if the story is really being accurately told, if the audience is following, if the song is the right song, if the story is being told. So because you don't really know if that's the case until you get to previews, then you have to, when you start being previewed, then you go, okay, I got to write a new song. Let's figure out. In fact, Scottsboro Boy is a perfect example. You know, we did readings and then we discovered the opening number was not right. Nobody understood what the form of the show was. So Candor and Ebb wrote a new song to help explain, you know, what it was. So it's challenging to figure out, you know, that your show is not working, but it's a wonderful challenge to figure out how then to make it work.
Great. Many of you have directed productions with sensitive subject matter. What is your approach to material like that? How do you guide your actors through it? Karla and Pasha.
I will give an example. During Light in the Piazza, I had an actress who was very sensitive to any kind of touch. And she had to be in bed with a young man. And I think you have to respect where someone is coming from and talk to them about the fact that they are acting and that this is a piece of theater and they need to tell the story and help them through that. I think it was just the three of us in the room when we went through it until she got comfortable and she felt heard. And that was a big part of it, that she knew, you know, and that's what I think with actors, you have to be sensitive and hear where they're coming from. I mean, now it's a whole different ballgame, right? We have all of these physical touch, whatever, you know, I mean, I just feel like I'm such a dinosaur with all of these people now. We have to have, it's so sensitive, but I used to do it, right? I'd get on the floor and figure out how to make it look like we were having sex and figure out the arrangements for the actors. And now, you know, it's a very different world, but I do think it's a matter of really respect and listening more than anything for me.
Pasha?
Yeah, just thinking about like Hedwig, for example, I think as directors, research isn't just reading or watching videos, it's meeting people, it's learning from the actual community. So interviewing people, putting yourself out there because you want to be an authentic storyteller, but at the same time be an authentic director and relaying real stories to those that are, you know, acting it out or bringing it on stage. So for me, I think research isn't just reading, it's experiencing and learning from people that have experienced it firsthand.
And Larry, this last question goes to you. So when you have a playwright as a part of the rehearsal process, how do you interact with that individual?
Yes, dead playwrights are much easier. Well, the exciting puzzle of all of it. I always look at it that this artist has put all of their body and soul and creativity and mind and dreams into this piece. And I know they're holding their baby in my hands. So I'm very hyper aware of that. And yet I have to free myself to do the work that I find is best. So it is very difficult having those tough love conversations with someone that is precious about a song, a moment. One playwright that I worked with told me that they knew how every line in the play should be said. And my response was, in a loving, fun sort of way, I said, well, then you might consider doing this as a one-man piece, because you know how it should be done, then why don't you show us? But since we've hired and brought other artists in, let's hope that they can help us to hear things that we've never even imagined. And that moments can be funny, moments can have more depth. These realities can shift and grow, and we can go there together and make this a living, breathing, collaborative piece, which is, you know, otherwise I would say direct it yourself. So it's a tap dance, but it's one that I thrill to. You know, it's also when a playwright sits with you, and I've done a lot of new works, and they say, what would you do on page 1? And, you know, so you're sitting there in a meeting going, okay, what is the world that I want to create? How do I want to talk about the quality of the light? What do I think the set is going to look like? How do these elements start to come form and tell a story? And we're going to buy what you have to say or not, but all that you can do is say, this is how I channel this information, and this is the world that I'm seeing, and hopefully you want to take this journey with me and invest in me as a director.
Right. Thank you, Larry. A big, huge thank you to everybody here tonight, including 2 individuals that you cannot see. Sam Monson, our stage manager for the evening, that you heard so many complimentary remarks about, and to Kristen Peterson, who puts all of our video editing together. She puts us on our platform. She runs the show from a technical point of view, and just amazing work on both of their parts. As we enter into the summer, we're going to be doing Behind the Curtain every other week, as opposed to every week. So we will be back in 2 weeks with you, and we're going to change the time to 7 p.m. Instead of 7:30. So you'll learn more about that as you get our emails coming forward. So we will not see you next Thursday, but the following Thursday after that, and we will be letting you know about the surprises that we will be offering throughout the summer. I can't thank our group enough for everything that you have done for our theater and for everywhere else that you work across this grand old country. You're all just spectacular in your own ways. And we're very, very grateful. I'm very, very grateful to call each and every one of you a friend. From our house to your houses out there, ladies and gentlemen, please be safe, be healthy, until we can see each other again. So bye-bye for now, and until next time. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah.